Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, we're witnessing a massive, monumental shift right now in the tech landscape. For the longest time, artificial intelligence kind of felt like this experimental sandbox, right? Something researchers tinkered with behind closed doors, or maybe some novel little feature you had to actively go out of your way to find. Well, that era is officially over. Today, we're looking at how Google AI has aggressively transitioned from experimental projects into the absolute default global infrastructure that powers the digital lives of billions of people. And to truly grasp the sheer gravity of this shift, we've got to start with the numbers. 2 billion. Let that number sink in for a second. That is the number of monthly active users currently utilizing Google Search's AI overviews across 200 different countries and territories. We're not talking about some projection for next year. This is happening right now. Think about the scale of that. We're talking about 2 billion people getting AI-generated summaries right at the top of their search results, which is fundamentally changing how humanity accesses information every single day. And right on its heels, we have another staggering milestone, 100 million. That's the monthly active users engaging with AI mode, which is that conversational chat-based search layer, and that's just in the United States and India alone. This really proves that users aren't just passively scrolling past AI summaries. They're actively adopting these natural language, chat-driven interactions to dig way deeper into their questions. But hey, if you really want to measure the raw computational gravity of all this adoption, look at this, 980 trillion. That is the number of tokens Google processed in a single month. That metric alone absolutely solidifies that AI is no longer just some fringe tool. It is a massive, planetary-scale utility.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our agenda. We're going to use an iceberg model to break this down today. First, we'll look at the scale of Google AI, then explore the visible tip with the consumer AI surface, before guiding you deep underwater to the developer tooling stack, mastering Google AI Studio, checking out Gemma and agent platforms, and finally wrapping up with the strategic AI takeaway.
So, starting with part 1, the scale of Google AI.
Back during Alphabet's Q2 earnings call, CEO Sundar Pichai completely reframed the AI conversation by dropping some very concrete adoption numbers. And what's really interesting here is the aggressive velocity. Back in May at Google's developer conference, they announced they were processing 480 trillion tokens a month. Fast forward just a couple of months to the July earnings call, and that number had literally doubled to 980 trillion. This isn't some slow, linear growth curve. This is an absolute explosion in utilization driven by a very deliberate strategy.
Moving to part 2, the consumer AI surface.
Now think of this as the visible top of the iceberg. This is where those trillions of tokens are actually being generated and where billions of everyday users are interacting with the tech without needing a computer science degree. Google has just methodically baked AI into its highest trafficked default infrastructure. I mean, the standalone Gemini app alone rocketed to 450 million monthly active users. But beyond just the app, AI is everywhere. It's in your search with AI overviews. It's in Workspace, drafting emails for you with Help Me Write. It's literally built right into the Chrome browser. It's in Google Maps offering hands-free navigation. It's seamlessly integrated into the whole shebang, the exact tools people are already using every single day.
Now, this level of consumer integration is incredible to watch, but it naturally leads to a massive question for anyone building software today. If Google has already captured the consumer surface, how do developers actually tap into this massive ecosystem? How do you build on top of, or even alongside, this kind of scale?
Well, that brings us to part 3, the developer tooling stack. Time to go underwater.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what builders have access to today. Google's current offerings are incredibly broad. It's not just one massive text model trying to do everything. You've got Gemini acting as your general-purpose engine for intelligent agents. You've got Veo pushing the boundaries of high-fidelity video creation. Nanobannon's handling incredibly detailed image creation and editing. Gemma gives you that open-weight flexibility. And Lyria is specifically designed for professional-grade music and audio generation. It's a remarkably complete multimodal toolkit.
But look, having the models is really only half the battle, right? You need the infrastructure to actually deploy them. And Google is offering two very distinct paths here. On one side, you have the Gemini API, which is your general-purpose programmatic interface, super flexible, super broad. But on the other side, you have Google Antigravity. Now, this is positioned specifically as an agent-first development platform. This contrast is a huge deal, actually, because it shows that Google is treating agentic workflows, where AI acts autonomously to solve multi-step problems, as an entirely distinct architectural challenge from your standard API calls.
Which leads us perfectly into Part 4, Mastering Google AI Studio.
If you want to start building with these models, this web-based tool is hands down your fastest, lowest friction entry point. And honestly, the best part is that you barely need to know how to code to get started. The setup cost to test these Gemini models is practically zero. You literally just sign in with your existing Google account, click once to generate an API key, and from there, you just type in your system instructions. Something like, "You are a helpful customer service assistant." Boom, you can immediately start prototyping and testing. It's this beautiful, frictionless sandbox.
But hey, don't let the simple interface fool you. Under the hood, AI Studio is packed with some seriously advanced tool settings that translate raw models into robust application backends. You can enforce structured output, which forces the model to return clean JSON or XML so your code can read it perfectly. You can enable code execution, letting the model actually run Python snippets to solve complex math, and you've got function calling, which connects the AI directly to your company's internal databases or external APIs.
Now, the most fascinating feature in there for sure is grounding with Google Search. See, AI models are typically frozen in time, based on whenever their training data was collected. But turning on grounding bridges that gap, allowing the model to pull in real-time, factual info straight from the live web. You absolutely want this turned on if you're building an app that answers questions about current events. But if you're doing something like creative writing or you're processing highly private, secure data, you'd want to turn this off to keep the model strictly reliant on its own internal logic.
All right, let's pivot to Part 5, Gemma and Agent Platforms.
So what if you absolutely love the architecture of Gemini, but for privacy, cost, or compliance reasons, you simply cannot send your data to Google servers over an API? Well, that is exactly where Gemma comes in. Gemma is Google's family of open-weight AI models. They're built from the exact same cutting-edge research as the flagship Gemini models, but they are packaged up so you can download them and run them right on your own local hardware or private cloud. This is a massive deal for businesses that require on-premise deployment or need to fine-tune a model on highly proprietary data or honestly just want to avoid paying per-call API costs at a massive scale.
And speaking of massive scale, the developer momentum right now is just huge. Over 9 million developers are currently building with Gemini. And to support the real heavy hitters in that group, Google offers the Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform. This isn't just about pinging an AI to write a quick poem. This is serious enterprise-grade infrastructure designed specifically for building, scaling, and most importantly, governing autonomous agents across massive business ecosystems.
Finally, Part 6, the strategic AI takeaway.
So the crucial point is, what does all this actually mean for your strategy today? We've seen the massive user metrics, the vast product surface, the deep developer stack. Just look at this quote here. The 2 billion AI overviews figure is a distribution mode. Because Google is aggressively embedding AI into services like Search, Workspace, and Chrome, which already have massive, locked-in audiences, they are completely shifting the market. It means that simply slapping a thin AI wrapper on a product? Yeah, that's no longer a viable business model. For developers, basic AI text generation is now table stakes. It's a default expectation, not a competitive differentiator. You have to focus on deep, complex integration and agentic workflows that actually solve real problems.
Which leaves us with one final, vital question to consider as we wrap up today's explainer. If AI is no longer just a novelty, but the absolute default infrastructure utilized by over 2 billion people every single month, when you look at your own projects and your own businesses, are you just building a feature or are you building a foundation? Definitely something to chew on as you decide where to place your bets in this rapidly scaling ecosystem. Thanks for joining.